Hey, Washington Commanders fans. Today I'm bringing a bit of happiness and showing that the management can make good signings. Get ready because what I'm about to tell you is our only hope in this nightmare season. I know we're exhausted from so many losses, injuries, and frustrations, but the light at the end of the tunnel could be in the next NFL draft of 2026. Let's dive into a 7-round simulation that could completely change the future of our team, bringing in the talents we desperately need to get out of this hole. And of course, don't forget to hit the like button. It's just a click and helps me a lot. Adam Peters took the aggressive measures necessary to potentially keep the Washington Commanders in the Super Bowl hunt during the preseason, and we, as fans, genuinely believed. Unfortunately, things didn't go as anyone associated with the franchise expected, and the 2025 season turned into a true disaster. It's been one problem after another for the Commanders this half of the season. Injuries have decimated the roster, taking key players off the field. Young players who had high expectations did not meet what was anticipated from them. And the oldest roster in the NFL is exactly that, a huge problem that is hurting the team at this moment, lacking the speed and energy needed to compete. Peters chose not to make any changes to the roster at the 2025 trade deadline, which left many fans frustrated. We expected some exits, given the slow and disappointing start of the Commanders this season to accumulate more draft picks, but either there wasn't proper interest from other teams, or the offers weren't enough for the manager to part with certain players. The fact is that the Commanders will move forward with what they have during the second half of 2025, trying to salvage what's left of the season. Even so, it's clear that Peters will have a lot of work ahead of him when the next offseason arrives to get this ambitious project back on track and build a winning team. And that's why the 2026 NFL Draft becomes our greatest hope. Using the Pro Football Network simulator, we took an early look at how Peters could approach his draft picks in a special 7-round midseason simulation. We need a clear plan for the future, and the draft is the best way to start the rebuild. The Washington Commanders have only 6 selections at their disposal next spring, which is limited draft capital for so many needs. They have 2 picks in the first 4 rounds, so trading down or finding another way to acquire selections is something Adam Peters needs to consider at some point to have more chances of getting it right. Washington's poor performance places us in the 8th overall position in the 2026 NFL Draft, at least for now. It's not exactly where Peters imagined the team would be, but this high position gives him more options if the trend of losses continues. Finding reinforcements for the defense should be his main priority, as our defense has been one of the worst in the league. The Commanders desperately need more explosiveness, physical strength, and dynamism on that side of the ball. And this is where our first pick comes in, at the 8th overall position. Arvell Reese, linebacker from Ohio State. Finally, a linebacker with that energy. Reese has been making waves in college football this season. His first real appearance with the Ohio State Buckeyes resulted in a national championship last season, showcasing that he knows what it takes to win. He has exponentially increased his influence in 2025, and his draft stock is skyrocketing, which is a great sign. The prospect is a presence that covers the field from sideline to sideline against the run, getting to the ball carrier quickly and violently. He has the size to impact plays as a pass rusher, and his movements are fluid enough to become a valuable asset in coverage. If Bobby Wagner leaves the Commanders this offseason as expected, Reese represents a ready-made replacement to take on the position and bring new energy to our defense. In the second round, our simulation points to Jermaine Matthews Jr., cornerback from Ohio State. Another one from Ohio State. Will we get it right this time? The Washington Commanders have invested heavily in their cornerback position since Adam Peters took over, but more is needed for this defense to achieve the necessary improvements next season and beyond. Trey Amos, this year's second-round pick, fits the ideal profile. Mike Sainer still regressed, but is not entirely written off yet. Marshawn Lattimore, on the other hand, is not in playing condition this season after tearing his ACL against the Seattle Seahawks, which will keep him off the field for the rest of 2025. If Lattimore is released as expected, the Commanders urgently need to bolster their cornerback position. Jonathan Jones and Noah Igbenegany are both set to be free agents, so finding an Ohio State prospect demonstrates coverage skills and versatility to play all across the line of scrimmage. He's a player unafraid to make tackles and tracks receivers exceptionally well. Gaining more strength when he reaches the professional level would be a wise decision, but there's so much to admire about Matthews' ability to make a smooth transition to the NFL and become a solid player in our secondary. In the third round, the pick falls to Gabe Jacas, edge rusher from Florida. We need someone to get to the quarterback. Jacas seems to have that hunger. Fans were worried that Adam Peters didn't do enough to strengthen the pressure options against opposing quarterbacks this season. The Commanders were counting on experienced veterans to get the job done and avoid injuries. Unfortunately, health issues exposed the lack of quality in the unit. Dorrance Armstrong Jr. and Dietrich Wise Jr., the starting duo of defensive ends, are out for the season. Drake Jackson was signed and immediately placed on injured reserve. This left the Commanders with Jacob Martin, Von Miller, and Preston Smith. It's hardly a prolific group, which is why Frankie Louvu has been spending more time on the defensive line in recent weeks, playing out of position. Peters needs to give this crucial area of the field the attention it deserves when the 2026 offseason begins. Including the signing of free agents seems realistic to bring in experience. This is also a promising draft class to select one or two talented players, even if the picks are limited. Gabe Jackas has the physical profile and production capability that Dan Quinn has been able to maximize in the past. He may not be the biggest, but his tireless energy and explosiveness make up for it abundantly. And the Commanders could use him in plays along the line of scrimmage to create mismatches for the opposing defense in this scenario, bringing the pressure we so desperately need to destabilize rival offenses. In the 4th round, the simulation brings us Eric McAllister, wide receiver from Boise State. A big and fast receiver? That's exactly what Mariota Daniels need. The hiring of new receivers should also be considered at some point during the draft. The Washington Commanders have several issues to resolve, with some key veterans on expiring contracts and others representing question marks until further notice. Terry McLaurin, Luke McCaffrey, and Jalen Lane are the only 3 players on the Washington active roster with guaranteed contracts for next season. Deebo Samuel Sr. may have his contract extended if the financial proposal is viable, and Treylon Burks is another who could secure another year on his contract if he delivers a strong performance in the second half of 2025. In any case, the Commanders need another young weapon for the offense. Eric McAllister has the physical build and potential to become something even greater. He is a nightmare for opposing defenses when he gets rolling early in the game with his speed and ability to stretch the field. The receiver is also standing out as a threat in the red zone, which further enhances his impact and makes him a valuable target for our quarterback. This represents enormous value, but McAllister could offer even greater value if developed properly, bringing another explosive option to our offense and relieving pressure on McLaurin and Samuel. In the 5th round, the pick is Wydett Williams Jr., safety from Ole Miss. Finally, someone to bring some physicality to the secondary. The situation with the Commanders' defense continues to be a mystery, and the secondary is one of the most vulnerable areas. The long-term future for the team is uncertain, with young players lacking the necessary playing time and veterans underperforming. Quan Martin's breakout season has yet to materialize. Jeremy Reeves is solid enough, but Will Harris's injury has affected the team's stability. Tyler Owens and Percy Butler have been more utilized on special teams, despite their athletic attributes, justifying greater involvement in the defensive rotation. Wydett Williams Jr. is an intriguing prospect who can bring the aggressiveness we so desperately need. The physical, strong tackling defender transferred to Ole Miss this offseason and has adapted exceptionally well to the rigors of SEC competition, demonstrating his ability to handle a high level of play. He is still developing, but his trajectory is on the rise, and he has the potential to become an impact player in the NFL. Williams could stay in college to increase his chances of being promoted to a higher level. However, if he declares for the draft, the Commanders could do much worse at this stage of the recruitment process, and he would be a great addition to our secondary. And to wrap up our simulated draft, in the 6th round, the pick is Fernando Carmona Jr., offensive tackle from San Jose State. A strong offensive line is the foundation of it all. Hopefully, he develops. The Commanders' offensive line could benefit from a slight overhaul during the 2026 offseason. This is even more significant on the interior of the line, which has compromised the consistency and depth of the roster, especially at the guard position, ahead of Jaden Daniels or Marcus Mariota. Sam Cosmi and Tyler Biadasz remain solid in their respective positions, which is a positive. The situation is less clear at the left guard position, although Chris Paul is standing out enough for a potential contract extension. In any case, the Commanders need to strengthen their roster to ensure they can handle injury issues when they inevitably arise, and having depth on the offensive line is crucial. Finding a developing player later in the draft is an option to consider, and Fernando Carmona Jr. meets those requirements. With his size, power, and raw strength, he represents a solid foundation to build a team. Carmona needs to improve the technical aspect of his game, especially his footwork, which can be his weak point at times. So expecting miracles immediately would be unrealistic. However, if the Commanders can gradually develop him in that scenario, they could have another great revelation on their hands, ensuring protection for our quarterback in the future. As a fan, I know this season is a disaster, but looking to the future through the draft gives us a bit of hope. Adam Peters has the chance to correct the mistakes of the past and build a young, talented team with the energy we so desperately need. These simulated picks show a path to strengthening the defense, adding weapons to the offense, and ensuring the protection of our quarterback. It's an ambitious plan, but necessary to pull the Commanders out of this hole and put us back on the path to victory. Now, I want to know your honest and unfiltered opinion on this 7-round draft simulation. Which of these picks excited you the most, and which do you think is the riskiest? And, more importantly, if you were General Manager Adam Peters, what would be your top priority in the upcoming draft to rebuild the Washington Commanders and get us back to the playoffs? Respond in the comments, because this discussion can reveal a lot about what the fan base truly expects from the management at this critical moment and how you see the future of our franchise.